Hello everyone. Today I'm starting a new series which I call The Living Tarot. And essentially it's a series where I share with you my personal life experiences with the tarot cards, one card at a time, and how it came into my life and the personal circumstances and the challenges or the lessons that I learned for each of the cards. And today I wanted to start off the series. I'm kicking this off with perhaps one of the most difficult cards in the tarot, which is the Three of Swords. I've got here the Universal Rider-Waite-Smith version of the card. And I do say difficult because I'm not going to gloss over or put a positive spin on a card that has a heart with three swords in it. Of course, there are very important lessons that turn out to be positive lessons ultimately in our life. But when you look at the image of a heart with three swords in it, it is an image of pain and sorrow. So I've written about this in my blog. I don't update my blog very often now because I've been put off by AI and the way it's stealing everyone's work. So I've sort of stopped updating my blog, and I'm even thinking about pulling it off, which makes me want to start with the Three of Swords, which I've written about a few years back. Now, my experience with this card happened when I was around 30 years of age, and it was a very painful experience, of course. At the time, I found myself pregnant, and the circumstances in my life were such that I really was not in the right position or frame of mind to have a child. Now, I know you can successfully argue it's never the right time, it's never the perfect time, I should say. But for me, it really, really was a difficult time. I was ungrounded. I had no career. I didn't really know what I was doing in my life. But most important of all, I was not with the right partner. And he also wasn't interested in having a child either. So all the factors, like no matter which way I put it, like I had no money either, I had no savings to fall back on. It was just really not the right time at all. But I wanted to have a child, and I think that made the situation just far more difficult because I knew that it was something that I wanted to do. But really not being in the right place, not just financially, because you'll always make do financially, but not being with the right person, being in a time it was a very confusing time in my life. I didn't know what I was really doing with my life. I wanted to do so many things, but I had come out of a very challenging set of circumstances where I had been put on medication, and even though I had come off medication, I just wasn't grounded enough to go through what is required to raise a child, really. So I decided to have a termination, and I booked myself a visit at a hospital. Actually, I think I had to go and see a doctor to discuss having a termination, and they do a number of things, like they you have to go and see them and they ask a series of questions. They want to make sure that basically you want to go through with this. And while I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted to, I gave them the right answer, the answer that would guarantee that I would I would not be essentially turned away from having this procedure. But I deep down didn't want to go through with it. It wasn't just that I wanted to have a child, but I also, the thought of having that procedure itself was not, I was fearful of it, even though at the time I was in New Zealand, which has an excellent medical system and all the support, and everything there is there to help you with this really challenging time. But in any case, I, gave the right answers to ensure that I could go through with this. But I had a few weeks left to, to really think about it deep in my heart. And one day I decided to get out my trusty Heindel deck Now, the Heindel deck for me is actually it was and will always be one of the most powerful decks. It's kind of like my soul deck, really. I don't know what it is about it. We all have that really special deck that we connect with on a really deep level. And this deck has always, when it comes down to difficult questions, it's basically the Rider-Waite-Smith or the Heindel. And the Heindel comes out when the questions are really, really, really difficult. So I don't actually use this much nowadays for the reason that I'm much more settled in life. But at the time, this was the deck that I reached for. And I drew one card and I asked for guidance. So just one card. I really wanted to know what should I do. And I drew the Three of Swords. So this is the version of the card from the Heindel deck. As you can see, the card itself is fairly bleak in color. It's kind of gray, loads of muted color, a gray-black sort of background, and there's the Three Swords, two of which are separated with a teardrop from the third. So this was the card that I received, and I want to stress how important it is to pay attention to the card that you're actually looking at. I've said this many times, and I'll continue to say it. You know, you've got to work with the imagery that's in front of you, because it's quite a different set of images, these two. But I knew the moment that I drew this card what it was telling me, and it was telling me to grieve. That tear there, it was almost like it jumped out of the card towards me, and I knew that I had to go through and grieve for this child that I couldn't have, and I did that. I actually said sorry to the child that I was carrying. I said sorry that I couldn't have it. I cried many tears. It was a really painful experience. But I am absolutely a firm believer that the reason I can talk about this now, not with complete ease, but without falling apart, is because I went through that process of grieving in that time and of letting go, of saying goodbye to a child that I, in a sense, really, really wanted, but I just knew I could not. It just really would have been a disaster to go through and have this child. So I spent some time doing that, grieving, and lots of crying and lots of tears were shed. And about, 3 or 4 days before my scheduled termination, I had a miscarriage. And I know without a shadow of doubt that the reason I had a miscarriage was because I went through that process and I said goodbye to the soul that I could not bring into the world. I know that without a shadow of doubt. It doesn't matter what statistical, facts you might throw at me about, the number of miscarriage, the number of pregnancies that end in miscarriage and all this and that. I know that, I was spared going through such a difficult procedure, such a challenging procedure, by having this miscarriage. I think the Great Spirit really was there for me and supported me through it. And, life, it turns out, it does move on. And I was able to meet a wonderful man years later and have 2 kids of my own, which I'm beyond grateful. And, the gratitude I can't even talk about in having kids as an older mom as well. But the experience of this Three of Swords at the time was it left a really profound mark on me on just how powerful the tarot can be, provided that we come to it with authenticity and that we're genuine in our questions and that we drop any pretenses that we might have, because they ultimately serve us no good. And I think that the cards, they mirror back the energy that you bring to the table, as so many teachers have said. And so, I think that's part of the reason I really thought about doing this Living Tarot series, because while I enjoy the lighter side of tarot, I enjoy people doing deck reviews. Of course I do. I enjoy people doing their deck hauls sometimes. I love seeing, the VRs, top 10 decks for winter. I've done them myself. That's a really great part of tarot. That's fun. It's lighthearted. It has its own form of therapy in terms of like uplifting us. But I genuinely feel that the true power and potency of tarot lies in its ability to guide us through incredible challenges and situations when we come to meet it with an authentic mind and heart and soul. And for me, that's always been the case. That's not the only story that I have. I've got lots of stories with different cards about how they helped me and guided me, or proved some incredible synchronicities as well. And I'll talk about them as the series goes on. I aim to do maybe one video a month as time allows. I'm fairly busy at this moment, but I should have a lot more time towards the end of the year. In any case, that's really the impetus for the series. I wanted to share the lived experience of working with cards, with tarot cards, and how incredible and transformational that is. So I hope you find this series enjoyable somewhat. And I welcome, of course, always people's feedback and comments. And I thank you for being here with me. I thank you for supporting my channel as always. And until my next video, take care.